keep on rolling here. The wide receiver stocks. I actually found this one really hard to do fallers. There weren't too many that dropped in my rankings, to be honest, but there were definitely some rises. I had Mike Williams as the number one riser. I had him at number 28. I've been trying really hard over the first 2 weeks to get him into my team, but the owner won't budge, and fair enough. Last year, he had 85 targets in 15 matches. This year, 22 targets in 2. So looks like his role, they're using him a little bit differently. His yards per catch is down significantly. So last year, he was sort of, they confined him to pretty much a big play player when they needed a big yardage or they could see a potential bust in the coverage. They'd go to him. But now it looks like he's just a genuine wide receiver 2 for them, and he's going to get a lot more volume. And with his catching skills, that's a pretty lethal combo. He's also only one of 5 players to have 5 or more red zone targets. So Herbert likes picking him off in the end zone. My other riser is Chris Godwin, Christopher of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We were talking the other day about the fantasy value of the Buccaneers players, and some of them it's not ideal. Like, I'm not a big fan of Evans or AB just because they're inconsistent, but when it comes to some of the others, their offense is that good. It's hard not to, get lured into their ability. Chris Godwin, 19 targets across the 2 weeks, only 13 catches. You'd expect that to flatten out over the season. He won't be doing that catch rate for the rest of the year. Had 5 red zone targets. I reckon he's a top 10 receiver this year. The way Brady's just throwing that many nuts around. My fallers, as I mentioned, it was tough. So I've gone kind of mythical. Actually, first one, not mythical. Brandon Ayuk. I decided to stick the faith last week. Didn't want to overreact to one weird performance, but it looks like they just hate him now. He was my number 16 going into the season. He's had 2 targets in 2 games, and his snap count's actually still pretty decent. It's like mid-50s. I just don't know what's going on there. He's not being targeted at all. They're looking to prefer Trent Sherfield and all these other people, and it's just strange footy because he was sick last year, so he's obviously done something to piss off the coaches, but if you're a fantasy owner of IU, pretty tough times. And then another one, I know this because I have him in my own side, and that's Marquez Callaway. A lot of hype around him coming into the year. He was my number 30 coming into the weekend, but 6 targets in 2 games. He's going to cop the number 1 cornerback every week till Thomas returns, and Winston's averaging like 21 attempts. So there's just not enough volume there for any Saints receiver at the moment. And it's just, he's not really relevant in fantasy at the moment. Curtis, wide receivers, mate.
I had quite a few rises, to be fair. First one, going to go with Cup. The man's been balling, and I don't see it stopping at 9 catches for 163 yards, 2 TDs. Balled out in the first week, balled out again in the second week, and as I just said, I see it continuing. Also had Lockett. I traded him before the season even started for Julio. One of the dumbest things I've done because Lockett has been absolutely balling. He had 8 catches, 178 yards for a TD as well. Serious upside to him, I think. He's rocking me up my board in terms of fantasy rankings. Also had Williams. As you said before, Cork, man's been balling, and I'd love to get him as well, to be fair. And another one, a second-year man in Pittman. The man had 8 catches for 123 yards, and I think he's starting to show off that talent that he definitely has. And I think he could be a bit of a steal if someone has him sitting on their bench. And then for the falls, I had AB, who I had in the rises last week. 2.7 points, had 1 catch from 3 targets and 17 yards. Just massive concern with volume. As I said last week, he still does look like the AB of old. There's just too many heads to feed in that offense, and to be fair, even inclusive of Godwin and Gronk, I think you got to be pretty careful with all of them, just because 1 week they could have mass amounts of targets and put up 20 plus, and then the next week you can be expecting a sub 5. So just real careful with all of those Tampa players.
Yeah, shout out to AB, one of the sole reasons I got up in fantasy this week. So cheers, brother. I tell you what though, Lockett's on Fraud Watch. I don't know if anyone saw this, but their little fake Hail Mary at the end is one of the most disgusting stat padding moves I've ever seen. Obviously the Titans set up in the end zone and they were just like, nah, we're getting Lockett a cheeky 40 yards here and a catch. No chance of scoring. And yeah, Wilson and Lockett are on Fraud Watch. Pilch, who were your wide receivers, mate?
My riser was Cortland Sutton. First game without Judy, 150 yards, and can't see why the man's not going to be a WR1 whilst Judy is out. We all know how talented he is, and he's showed it. And then my faller, same with Kurt, AB. I think everyone just jumped the gun, and yeah, it's just going to be a different week, whichever wide receiver balls out in that offense. So I would be avoiding it. But Chris Godwin, who is the only consistent player in there.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I didn't tinker my rankings after week 1, because shit like that, they tickle your nuts and they choke you. But by the way, Curtis, you ended up getting CD Lamb for Julio, so you basically went Lockett to Lamb. So I don't even know if that's like a loss. So
nah, but I went Julio and then I went
Lamb. But you ended up
Julio docked me first week.
Yeah, for 1 week. Yeah, relax, bro, relax. You got CD Lamb.
Yeah, well, every week matters when you're 0-2, mate.
Mate. You're going to be fine, brother. You're going to be fine. You're actually legit worried about the real NFL 0-2 stats, but it just doesn't apply to fantasy, mate. You're going to be right. About 4 blokes in our league don't even know what NFL is. You'll be G, brother. All right.
It's a miracle. Oh, yeah. What about that one? Unbelievable. Balotelli. Aguero. Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.